Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. So, what we're going to talk about today is how any business can change the world no matter what the size. Raise your hand if you believe that you can change the world in your company. So, this is really covering the nexus between impact and innovation. So what are we talking about today? The overview is how to make a global impact with business. This is what we'll learn today. Why most people go into business, what motivates us and creates fulfillment, how do you create a set of company values, how do you use those values to stand out, and more importantly, how does that compare to the current market dynamics? How do you get started standing out amongst the crowd? Who else is this working for? We'll see some examples there. And then we'll talk about the triple bottom line. Finally, we want to understand the psychological buying process. Because once you understand this framework, it'll make it much easier for you to be able to convey your message and really gain your audience in this new space. And finally, what are some examples that we can look for? So, a little bit about my background. I have a background in tech commercialization from UT. As I said, I'm a social entrepreneur, media strategist, and speak and train around the world. And also, I am the director of business development for Plus Social Good and executive director of Austin Plus Social Good here in town. And most recently this year, I was nominated by the Austin Young Chamber as Changemaker of the Year. So those are a little bit of my travels there. That is most recently Muhammad Yunus. Raise your hand if you've heard of Muhammad Yunus. Muhammad Yunus is the founder of what we know today as microfinance and microloans. He started the Grameen Bank in Bangladesh when basically that country and that economy needed some support. So my company is Core Media Strategies. We create remarkable campaigns for brands that are changing the world. These are some of the brands that we have on our roster that we've worked with. And more importantly, as we've grown, we realized that we were a little bit in a silo. We wanted to actually create a company that was making an impact and a change. However, when we spoke, we heard a lot of echoes. And so we wanted to figure out how to create a global network where the message actually resonated with others. So Plus Social Good is that example. Raise your hand here if you are within the age range when you remember the Captain Planet and the Planeteers. A couple, okay, good. As a kid, I watched that show and I was like, oh man, one day I want to be part of the Planeteers. Well, this is the closest that I've come to in helping found this network called Plus Social Good. This is one of our gatherings at the United Nations Foundation in Washington, D.C. most recently. It's a group of global change makers that are doing amazing things. Some will probably be presidents of their country one day. So again, as I run Austin Plus Social Good, we were the ones that helped innovate social good at South by Southwest. So if you look at South by Southwest Interactive for the past couple of years, after the whole buzz grew out of lean startup, social good became the topic that everyone's talking about. We were the ones that helped innovate that conversation into the programming. We also have done some pretty cool things. We've started the Social Innovators Fund in Fast Pitch. This is 2013 at our very first event where we awarded $5,000 to the winner of this competition out of the 6 that competed. Carl Settles ended up being the winner there from E4 Youth here locally in town. This is 2014 on the bottom that you see. And you'll still see one of our colleagues down there, Jeff Cardenas, who runs Think Voting here in town. You might be familiar with him. And this year, as of October of this past year, if some of you guys were here to witness, on this very stage, Chelsea Elliott from Half Helen won our 2015 Fast Pitch competition. So what else do we do around town with Austin Plus Social Good? Well, we have a monthly meetup series that you can join, and we just finished having a successful one in the neighborhood maybe about a week ago or so. It was really great, highly attended, over 100 people showed up. We also helped innovate Work From Home Day. And I don't know if you've been hearing about the mayor trying to ask people to find alternative ways to get around town. Well, we were the ones that helped innovate in that process, and now it's become Mobility Week. So we do that each year in the fall. So we'll be working on that coming up not only next week when the mayor's doing his one day, but we'll be doing something in the fall as well. And finally, in our spare time, as if we didn't have enough time to do things, we have partnered with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and also Austin Independent School District to create basically a mini Shark Tank of what we do for the grown-ups, but for high school students. So we simplified the curriculum and went ahead and taught Title I students all across the city how to create, those who were interested in being a part of the program, how to create business plans and then present them so that they can actually get funding. So we've awarded over $10,000 these past 2 years for those companies that have those high school kids and those companies that they come up with. So let's stop there, because enough about me. Let's really get into the meat of the discussion. I want to just poll the audience and ask, why did you go into business? Maybe anyone want to raise their hand and help me out here? Maybe give me your reason of why you went into business. Why did you go into business? He said he hated the being an employee. He hated the ignorance and stupidity that was amongst him around all the time. So wow, that's really tough. Well, anyone else? Why did y'all decide to start your business? I saw a hand back there. Here, right here. Go ahead. And you know what? I'll be more mindful so the microphone can reach you. But basically, can you repeat that one more time? Okay, so you want to go into your own practice right now. Okay. Gotcha. Well, you're gonna learn a lot of stuff today, and my promise is that I want to simplify the message, but there's a lot of content that we'll be throwing out to you. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to stick around afterwards so we can go and break it down into more detail. So I did a survey, well, actually I did some research, and this survey that said that the top 10 reasons why people decide to start their own businesses. One, you control your own destiny, kind of like what you said, right? Find your own work-life balance if that exists. I don't know, many entrepreneurs here don't really believe that. We're just always working. You can choose the people you work with, right? You take on the risk and then you reap the reward. So you basically get paid for however hard you want to work. You can challenge yourself. You can follow your passion. And you can get things done faster. You get to connect with your clients. And you can give back to your community. And finally, you feel pride in what you're doing, something you own. But if you see all these things, they seem like independent in themselves, but they're all interrelated. They're all interrelated because they're all things that help motivate us to do something for ourselves. And this kind of goes into a theory that I'm going to talk about. You may be familiar with, you may not, and we're going to go over it in detail. It's called self-determination theory. So what are the commonalities here? After several decades and years of researching motivation, we know that there's two basic types of motivation. There's extrinsic motivation, so motivation from the outside, and then there's intrinsic motivation. Raise your hand if you believe that extrinsic motivation is stronger than intrinsic motivation. He believes that extrinsic motivation is high. Raise your hand if you believe that intrinsic motivation is higher than extrinsic motivation. The majority of the people here believe that intrinsic. And it's interesting because it depends on the situation, but more than likely at the end, you can get someone to do something for a while through extrinsic motivation, but just like Daniel Pink talks about in his book, that'll all fade away. Really, at the end of the day, like you said, not to get personal, you probably had a really nice job, you probably were getting paid really well, and you're like, I can't stand being here still, right? Maybe say something similar to that? So he found an opportunity, he followed his passion, and you decided to just kind of go at it for yourself. Raise your hand here, and maybe if I can just have the mic come to you. Raise your hand here if you've been in a job where you get paid really well and you really do not like what you do. Ma'am, would you mind sharing with us real quick?
The reason why I got into business is because architects, we can offer so much to social good, but right now I'm, building really big buildings and,
So it's not fulfilling. It's not fulfilling you as much. So we've seen a lot of people, and especially in this younger generation, the millennial generation, who said, you know what? Money's great, we need it, but it's not the end-all, be-all, and that's not what my life is going to be about. So here are the top 3 things that we found out, not only from the top 10 list you just saw, but really when they're condensed down and we talk about self-determination theory. So there's autonomy, there's competency, and then there's relatedness, and we'll talk about these 3. So what do they all mean? Well, we started our own business, and we wanted to go out it for ourselves because we wanted to be our own boss. We wanted to be autonomous, and we had to have a sense of freedom. But we also needed to build a sense of competency. If we went out to try to do something on our own, but we totally sucked at it, we probably wouldn't keep doing it long, right? But then in that aspect of trying to go out there and be alone and independent and really good at what you do, we see a lot of entrepreneurs sometimes burn out. And they burn out because they don't have a community to lean on. They're doing it all themselves. They're trying to be the mythical entrepreneur who can phase all challenges. But we realize that things don't work in a silo. We need a community to be able to exchange and be strong with. So Dr. Desi and Dr. Ryan are the 2 that help provide this kind of framework. This is why this is important. I'm laying a couple of frameworks out there for you so you can understand where I'm going with the discussion. Just so you can get a visual example, you have relatedness, autonomy, and competence. When all these work together, you start feeling a sense of connectedness, of purpose, of fulfillment. So hold that thought really quick, and then let's move over to, actually, let's go back. If some people want to take a picture of that. And if you want, on YouTube, type in self-determination theory, and you can watch several videos about it. It's really interesting. But it's interesting because it talks about what motivates you and what motivates people. And that's at the heart of what's about changing the world, right? Because if you can't get people to convey and follow your message or follow a message, then how do we actually move in the direction that actually is beneficial for all of us? So raise your hand if you've heard about the 6 factors to human fulfillment. This is good. A little bit. We might have one in the back. I might call you for some support. I took this from Tony Robbins. This picture not from Tony Robbins, but it basically talks about it. I've memorized these like I've memorized my ABCs, right? So without looking at it, humans to be fulfilled need 6 things. First and foremost, we need certainty, right? We need to know that there's a sense of stability in our lives. If we didn't have stability, we would be going crazy. And we've seen so many people just burn out because they're just always on the edge and they can't keep up, right? But too much stability, what happens if you have too much stability? You get bored. And what happens when you get bored? Say it again? You create havoc. Oh, exactly. It leads into trying to create some level of uncertainty, right? So we actually need a balance of certainty and uncertainty, right? But too much of one or the other is just not enough. Some people thrive on uncertainty, and some people thrive on certainty. But at the end of the day, we need a mix. We also have the need and the ability to have love. Every single human being on this planet, and I'm going to venture off to say even psychopaths, we all have this innate feeling of needing to be loved and being part of something larger than ourselves. And if we're not getting that met, we're not actually being fulfilled. So we're seeking that out, and we're always looking for friends, people to hang out with, people who we can relate with. So those top 3 are key to just being human yourself, right? And you can see how that connects to the relatedness part in the self-determination theory. And then we also need the ability to grow. Growing is so key because if we're not growing, some people say you're dying, right, in business, but you're not living up to your potential. And again, you're having the certainty, you're not feeling fulfilled. So if you stayed Some people said, oh, I wish I could always stay young. Or I wish I could always be a teenager. But if you were a teenager all your life, you probably would get tired of being a teenager, people, the way they treat you. We all remember how we were maybe treated when we were teenagers, right? So we need the ability to continue to grow on a continual basis. But then these last two are really what makes fulfillment real significant. One is significance. So just like in self-determination theory, there's competence, right? And there's autonomy and the relatedness, but really competence right here we're talking about. We need to be significant at what we do, right? So when we become the best at the world of what we do, we become significant. Or the best in our world of what we do, we become significant. But then that's still not enough. There's one more that's missing, and that's the ability to give back, to be of service. So we've acquired all these things, all this acumen through our whole life, right? And we've become real significant. We become people who are of high fame and high authority. But you see people, even in Hollywood, executives, who make it big, but they're not happy inside. And sometimes they have to hit rock bottom in order for them to realize, whoa, what's going on here? And usually when they come back, they're like, whoa, I got totally new perspective. I'm going to figure out how to give back. We have this innate need to be of service and give back. Again, that goes back to the relatedness and self-determination theory. So you see how they all kind of work together? This is why I'm leading to this. Again, they're intertwined, and there's a trend here. So my question is, would you agree that brands and companies, no matter what the size, are an extension of the founders or founding team? It seems pretty simple, right? Especially in a small business. It's a small business festival, right? But let's take it on a macro level. What do you feel when you see that logo on screen? What does that conjure up into your psyche, into your being? When you see that logo on screen, is that a good feeling or bad feeling? Kind? Economical? Good. It's efficient. You see, they're not outwardly saying, we're economic, we're efficient. They just are. And we observe it. It's innate. Let's try one more, a couple more. Oh, what is that? Oil spill, I heard. What else do we have out there? And I apologize if anyone here is affiliated with BP. This is not to single you out. British. What do we have back there? Negligent. Carbon sequestration. Jaguars at work, I think I heard. So okay, we'll say, I'm setting the field so you can understand where I'm going here. What about that one, though? Ill treatment of employees. What else do we got? In trouble. So my question, but how many of y'all know, and this is not me defending or being pro Walmart, how many of y'all know that Walmart has some of the biggest social giving programs of any Fortune 10, Fortune 100 company out there, and they've done a lot to kind of give back to the community? They're also the largest employer in the country. What'd you say, ma'am? They can start with their employees. So you see how there's some incongruency there? So there's they're trying to build trust, but on this one side, they're missing the boat. They're like, well, why don't people trust us? Misguided. Interesting. Oh, I know I'm pushing some buttons here. What do y'all feel when you see this? Quality. An island. Intuitive. Innovation. Revolutionary. See how they range the gamut? Becoming complacent, maybe? What about this one, though? How many of y'all seen this one on the bottom? Liars. You heard about the baby formula. Well, what else do you know about the company? So you see how a brand and a brand's message and a brand's ethos is so critical to the success. How many of y'all have given these companies $1? How many of y'all are willing to give these companies $1 again? See? Exactly. So it starts conjuring up, well, what do I need? Who do I want to align myself with, and why? So whether a company wants to or not, they are showcasing their values at every point of interaction with their client. What do you want your company to be saying about you? So what if you were one of the logos on that screen? What would people be saying about you? What would be people saying about my company? It's kind of different when the tables are turned, right? But it's healthy, though, to look at, and people say, well, I can't worry about what people think about me. But you're in business. It's totally different. So now you have to start thinking about how your branding, your reputation is perceived, especially maybe not to the external crowd, because you're never going to make everyone happy, but to your innovator circle, to your innovator segment who is die hard to you, who are loyalists, who are the ones that are willing to stand 3 days outside of your store to buy the next phone. Apple doesn't want to make them mad. So think about how you're standing above the fray. And how are we actually going to do that if we want to be successful? So we start with the founders. And the founders, whether they intentionally do it or not, because some do it really well, and some are just negligent, they convey their values to their employees. And sometimes they try to convey their values by speech only. We are these people. And then you see the misguidedness, right? The incongruency. And so even though they have really nice websites and they hired a great PR agency to tell their story, their employees do not like working there. And then if their employees don't like working there, are their customers going to like shopping there? You see how it all creates a whole experience. So what is your company's value? Why does your company value that? How is it empowering its people to live out those values? Because you should be totally transparent in it, right? And finally, how does it empower its customers and community to live out those values? Can I get maybe one person to kind of help me out here and tell me, as a business owner that you may be, what is one company value that you adhere to, that when people think about you and your company, this is what I want them to think about? Any volunteers? Yes. Honesty. So the gentleman said honesty. And so why do you value honesty, sir? It's the highest value that you can live out towards people. And how is being honest empowering those people? How are you empowering your people to live out honesty in their lives? So he begins being honest with himself. And so do you feel like, do you have people that work for you or contractors? You're a solopreneur right now. But if you did have a team, you would, I'm assuming you would incorporate honesty throughout the whole supply chain. So you're putting that as one of the top priorities in the company, making sure that honesty is always adhered to. So how many of you guys believe that actions attract people more than words? Raise your hand. So if that's the case, yes, you should have it on your website. Yes, you should talk about it every point you get a chance. But people are going to sniff you out. And people are going to see the results of what your company is and stands for based on those extrinsic or the external actions. So your employees that work with you will kind of tell on you without even telling on you intentionally, because they're going to see it. The customers are going to see it within them. So, okay, enough talk about all this woo-woo stuff. Ruben, let's get real. Running a business is actually really hard. I don't really have time to be thinking about changing the world. Like, where am I going to have time to find a way to give back? And more importantly, why can't we just make it easy and I can just give to charity, right? Like, I give to charity on the holidays. I'll just give, 5% like Target does to like educational programs. That's easy, right? That clears my conscience. That makes me feel good. I'm good there. Well, okay. Being charitable and noble does not pay my bills, some people say. My investors do not accept charity checks, right? These are all maybe rebuttals to wanting to become a better company. And I guess you all are here to hear this message of, okay, fine, we get that. How do we actually become an amazing company? Raise your hand if you heard of Jim Collins' Good to Great. It's an amazing book. If you haven't read the book, take time, download an Audible. He's not paying me to say this, but if you watch this, Jim, let me know. But what I'm saying to you is this book really helps define how to become a great company, because great companies truly can change the world. And if you look at this diagram here, in this Venn diagram, this sweet spot right in the middle, it's a convergence of talking about what are you the best in the world at, how do you make money, what drives your economic value, and what are you deeply passionate about. There's a big section here where he calls it the hedgehog theory. Now, I've actually, and I'm a city boy, so I'm just going to out myself, I've never seen a hedgehog. But I've seen it on TV, though, so I don't know if that counts. But not Sonic the Hedgehog, I'm maybe Discovery Channel. But all that being said, how many of you understand the nature of a hedgehog? Raise your hand if you understand how a hedgehog behaves. Kind of slow, doesn't move really fast. How does that compare to a fox? How does a fox go and try to catch its prey? It's cunning, it's always moving, it's fast. But okay, so let's ask ourselves, who's more accurate in catching their prey? The fox or the hedgehog? This gentleman says the fox. How many people agree with you with this fox? If you read the book, I'm not going to give it away. So I should have put a picture of the hedgehog on screen. But a hedgehog is actually much more calculated. He doesn't have to move much. He's watching, he's observing the whole time. And he says, you know what, we're going to focus here. And when we go to strike, we're going to strike almost 100% of the time. And we're going to continue doing that on a repeated basis. And that's how he is able to survive. Meanwhile, the fox is losing energy, chasing, and getting tired, right? This is the difference, and you can apply this principle in your company. So once you are able to start thinking about what is that one thing that makes you awesome and that you're passionate about and that the world needs and that you are making money with, then maybe you can start using that to stand out. People ask me, Ruben, aren't you scared that other people are going to start doing what you do or speaking the way you speak? And I said, no, I actually welcome it. Why? They're going to maybe encroach on your territory. Here's a beautiful thing about business. I'll relate it to on a personal level, and I'll do it on a macro level. I truly believe that no one can truly be me, and I can't truly be anyone else, right? Everyone's uniquely talented in their own way. Could Microsoft ever be Apple? And could Apple really ever be Microsoft? Or Dell, or any other company, right? They try to mimic each other, but inherently because companies are extensions of people, it's really hard to try to become someone else. So you focus on what you're really good at. Well, in tough times, remember, the best strategy is to stand out. That's when it matters the most. In times of scarcity, people have a harder time detaching from things that they've grown emotionally towards. Are you one of those things that people can't let go of? So let's set an example. Let's say you're having a rough week or rough month or rough year, but there's this one item that you just can't do without. Let's just say it's, I don't know, Tiffany's Treats, right? How many of you know the cookie maker here in town, Tiff's Treats? How many of you had Tiff's Treats? This is not a plug for Tiff's Treats, but I'm just asking. How many of you love their cookies? Right? Well, if you had to make a decision whether you're going to go and enjoy yourself somehow and you were addicted to Tiff's Treats, how many of you would be willing to give that up? This is a great space that the Chens find themselves in, right? They're growing rapidly because people want that fix. And like, oh my God, I have to have those cookies. So they found a niche and they know how to dominate and really be good at that. And when people think about comfort and relaxation and feeling good, they're like, I gotta go get me a box of Tiff's Treats, right? So this is kind of what you wanna be emulating too in your business. Because if people can't let you go, it doesn't matter if there's a recession in place. People are gonna let go of other things before they let go of you. And so when you see companies that thrive in the recession, it's because they have a real tight-knit relationship and network with their customers. Standing out is not hard because we all have something that makes us complete and our company unique and special. We just need to take some time to discover it. Again, like I said, we all have it within us. And as long as we start looking inwards, we'll be able to start carrying that throughout our company. So, let's talk about real hard economics right now. Raise your hand if you know about the fastest growing demographic in the US market. Actually, the global market, but let's just talk about the US market. Fastest growing demographic, age range. Millennials. Millennials. Roughly speaking, millennials are born, and I'm a millennial, and I apologize for that. I'm really not lazy. I'm really not entitled. I really work hard, I promise you. We're born between 1980s and the 20s, according to the Pew Research Center. And I tried to find the most cheesy picture of millennials on the internet to put there. So what do millennials prefer? Well, according to one of our clients, Edelman, in a 2012 Good Purpose study, 53% of the respondents reported that price and quality being equal, social purpose is the most important factor when making purchasing decisions. So that means if I was going to go in the market and buy a teddy bear, and I saw these two basically very similar teddy bears, right? Same price on one side, same price on the other, but one of them has a cause attached to it. Millennials are willing to purchase the one with the cause. So I don't know if you understand what this means on an economic level. Now, you could ride the gravy train and say, well, I'm a good wash too. I'm a green wash, and I'm going to say, I do good too. But people and millennials will sniff you out and say, yeah, okay, you're just fronting, right? But if you are truly impacting the world, people will keep coming back to you because they also want to contribute to the world and change it. People are already wanting to support things that are changing the world. Are you going to be one of those companies? Find out what cause not only are you passionate about, but the customers that you serve are passionate about. What do millennials prefer? When they ask a company that actively supports a good cause, 76% of respondents stated that they would buy its products and or services. That's pretty darn high. That's more than 3/4, guys. More than 3/4 also said they would recommend its products and services to their friends. And 72%, a little under 3/4, said they would share a positive opinion and experiences about the company with others. So aligning yourself with a cause or embedding it, more importantly, into your company is almost common sense, right? So how do we do this, though? Well, don't worry about it. You don't have to carry the world on your shoulders. You don't have to swallow the ocean right away. Let's focus on the hedgehog concept again, right? What is it that we do? And what is it that we're really good at? So for example, let's take our friends over at Build-A-Thon and Dan Graham. Now, Dan Graham probably has a lot of passions, right? He cares about social entrepreneurship. He cares about education. He cares about nonprofits. But he said, you know what? My company, I'm going to create a sector within my company that all we do is create signs for nonprofits and specifically veterans. When the war was going on, they were the ones behind that whole movement of creating signs that said, welcome home, soldier, John Doe or whoever it was, right? And they would give, if not for free, at a very, very discounted price, these signs. And this was a part of how they were giving back. And people loved this story. And they built loyalty with this company because of it. So, what is the one thing that makes you stand out? Anyone else here running a business that can maybe raise your hand and help me out? Yes? Give your best. So give your best. Follow me on this one, though. Here's where we're going with this. How many of you have played with dominoes as a kid and lined them up and saw the kinetic energy go? How many of you have heard of the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller? Did you read the whole book? It's a good book, isn't it? Have you got to the part where it talks about the dominoes? So in this book, in the domino part, he talks about how energy is transferred, but it's not about trying to create the most impact with one fell swoop at a broad range, but about being strategic, about lining up your actions just like you would line up dominoes so that each domino hits with precision the next domino and is able to actually make an exponential impact. Here's the secret, and I'll save you the whole story. I'm not going to ruin the whole book because I really want you to read it. But MIT students found out that if you put a domino that's 1.5 times greater than a regular domino next to it, when you start the chain reaction, it will actually knock down that 1.5 domino size. And so if you continue that idea and you put the third domino and a fourth domino, so the third domino is maybe 3 times the size, and et cetera, it just continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger, you can mathematically really do some damage. I think it was 19 dominoes to the Leaning Tower of Pisa, 27 to the Eiffel Tower, 36 to Mount Everest, and like 58 till the moon, which is pretty crazy. But think about it this way. This is where your company's at too. What is that one thing that you can do that by doing it will have the greatest impact possible, not only for your business and your bottom line, but for the community and your customers? And this is where we go and talk about helping build a community. So how many of you guys have a Facebook page and have a fan page for your company? How many of you actually believe that's a real community? It's not. Exactly. It's a nice vanity metric. It's a nice way to open the door and get engagement, but you don't really have a community yet. But it's a start. What do you need to do? You need to start real conversations with real people and start building trust among them. Remember we just saw the report on the millennials and them willing to buy stuff? Get them to start advocating and talking about what you do. Do something great for the community. Have real engagement. I always ask myself, if I go missing, if you go missing, will your customers go form a search party for you? Oh my God, we haven't seen this guy in ages or several days, however long the term, right? What are we going to do to make sure that we get him back? Because we need him in our lives. That's a pretty bold statement, but that's the kind of following that you need in order to be successful and start really thinking about how your company can really have a global impact. Because when people feel that loyal to you, they're willing to go above and beyond any normal brand to actually go help you out and change the world. So what I'm going to do is right here give you one more framework It's called the psychological buying process, is what I call it. Some people call it the psychology of selling. But it's real simple. There's more elaborate models here, but I'm just going to leave it here for right now. First, people have to get to know you. Then they kind of have to get to like you. As they start liking you, start building trust. After you build trust, then they get to try you out. And if they try it out as a test drive, then they'll buy. And the sixth one there is repeat, right? But so many people, just as in business, as in relationships, every single relationship is going through this process right now. I met Mr. Alexander about a year ago, and I barely got to know him. After time, we started to get to like each other. He comes to our events and he supports me. And then we start having real conversations and we start building this trust, right? And so now he comes to me and said, Ruben, you're going to be on one of my boards. I'm like, wait, you didn't even ask me to be one of your boards, right? But now that I understand where he's coming from, I understand his purpose, and I have no problem signing on board saying, I believe in what you do. I'm here to support you. You've supported me. There's a real relationship there. You're doing this with every single customer that is part of your business. Do you want to see why relationships fall apart? Because people stop doing the like, trust, and like and trust process again. Once people think they get to over the try and buy process, oh, I'm married, I'm good, she ain't going nowhere. And then the relationship just dies because you weren't nurturing it. You have to continue doing that with your customers as well and continue to work at it. So how do you help empower others to follow you? How do you give them the tools so that they can continue to evangelize for you and your community, right? Because once you get a certain amount of followers, they'll do the work for you. If I get a chance here during the Q&A, I'll show you a video of my friend Derek Sivers, who gave a TED Talk, and he talks about how epidemics and movements are started, and it's like a minute video. It's really awesome, but it's not the initial catalyst. It's not the owner that starts the movement. It's the second guy, it's the third guy that comes on board. Think about them as your employees. Think about them as your customers. That's who people follow. So, should I create a business to make impact? Should I create a business to make money? We've been creating businesses to make money. This whole idea of making impact is kind of caught a frenzy, and now people want to be part of it. But do they really have to be at odds with each other? Or can they be complementary? I believe that in order for capitalism to work in our future for our children, our children's children, we need to move to a place where they're not at odds with each other, but they're helping each other. We're using it as a tool and infrastructure to guide it so that we can actually make the world a better place. And it starts with the individual entrepreneur deciding to create his business model in a way that helps address a social issue or an environmental issue. And that is really what the triple bottom line and being a social entrepreneur is all about. So let's look at some examples. Here is my beloved brother and friend and former business partner, Tony Aguilar, with Barry Obese at the White House, showing off Student Loan Genius. We founded a company called Amity Advising in 2011. It was the first financial planning firm focused on Generation Y, millennials. Through iterations and work, he has now helped build over the past year and a half, Student Loan Genius, which is basically the 401k for student loans. And he's totally disrupting the market, and he just got $4 million of investment. I'm very proud of him, and he's here locally. 5 years ago, if you asked him if he was a social entrepreneur, he's like, heck no, I'm here to make money. Now, he's here making an impact, and I'm very proud to be part of that movement. Let's take it a step bigger. Maybe what is a medium-sized example? Well, there's my buddy William Hurley, and my buddy Henry Yoshida, who just sold their company to Goldman Sachs for an undisclosed amount of money. Honest Dollar is basically the place that you would go as a contractor to create and store your retirement funds. Or if you're a company that hires a lot of contractors or has a lot of employees, It's an easy way for you to help manage all those retirement accounts so that each payment period, you're putting money into the retirement account, and you're not being charged these crazy fees to be able to manage it. They've created a SaaS model, and they're disrupting the market, and now Goldman Sachs sees their technology and says, we need that. We're going to figure out how to make it possible and expand it nationally and globally. And here out of Austin, Texas. And this is why I believe that the work that Tony, Henry, Will, and for this next guy that I'm about to show you, Austin really has the potential, and the work that we've been laying down, we really have the potential to become the social innovation and entrepreneurship capital of the world. Up so much so that when the mayor got elected, he's now used it as his platform saying, we're going to help solve problems in this kind of fashion and form. So you're here at ground zero, hopefully you'll see in the next couple of years, companies that really come out, just like John Mackey's did 30 years ago, almost 35 years ago, really making a difference in the landscape. Whole Foods has gone worldwide, obviously they're national, and they've really been making a transition and transformation on how accessible healthy food is. Now, are they the only outlet for this? No, of course not. They've attracted a lot of competitors, and they've themselves had to innovate, especially with their new brand they're coming out called 365. But at the heart of it, it's that principle saying, we can make money and we can make an impact. They don't have to be separate. But we have to realize, what are we really good at? What are we serving? And how do we become the best in the world at that? Again, the hedgehog theory. So what is social entrepreneurship? Social entrepreneurs seek to transform societies at large rather than transforming their profit margin, as classic entrepreneurs typically seek to do. Social entrepreneurs use a variety of resources to bring societies into a better state and well-being. There's one of my role models, Muhammad Yunus. If you ever get to see him on YouTube, even in person, he's an inspiration. When you hear him talk, wow. Here's our buddy, Scott Harrison, who helped actually sponsor and support our very first event at South by Southwest in 2013 and helped pave the way for social good programming here in Austin at South by. And there's there's Blake Mikowski, and you may be familiar with him because he's the one that started and founded Tom's Shoes. So what do they all have in common? They're all working towards a triple bottom line. Raise your hand if you have heard of the triple bottom line. 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe a quarter of the room. Good. The triple bottom line is not that complicated. Obviously, we know that a business has to make its bottom line. It has to make money. Otherwise, you're not in a business. But instead of just thinking about the economic return, what if we were to start thinking about the environmental return, the social return on investment? We thinking about it real simple in this term: people, planet, profit. What if we were to always think about that in our company in those terms? What if we were to able to think about it first as the impact on our people? And that includes not only the customers we serve, not only the employees that work for us, but also the external community amongst the ecosystem that we find ourselves in. So that's one. And then second, what is our impact to our planet? Am I helping create net neutral impact on what's my carbon footprint look like on my planet? Or am I actually making a bigger impact in a detriment to my future children's world and their children's world? And we need to ask these hard questions. Now, this is not asking that you need to totally shift 180 degrees and forget about making money. No. Just like anything that you incorporate, you add it bit by bit, but you make it part of the mission of the company so that you never forget about it, because in even scarce times, it's gonna be real easy to say, you know what, it was all good, but we need to focus on making money right now. And all the impact that you were having gets slashed, gets forgotten about. And we need to figure out a way to actually move past that. So here's the history of the phrase of the triple bottom line. It was actually started by this think tank, Sustainability, and this guy named John Eccleston back in 1994, and it's kind of grown on a global level now. So all that being said, can all companies benefit from this mindset? Yes, of course. By thinking innovatively, you start seeing opportunities where otherwise you would have blind spots. It helps you become more efficient and synergistic in your thinking and operation, and it helps create a culture of accountability and transparency and trust. And without it, we'd probably be living again in the 80s with Leonardo DiCaprio and The Wolf of Wall Street. And if you saw that movie, that's pretty scary times. I'm not saying that they don't exist now, but it was a very good, vivid representation of what our world can be like. So with that concludes my presentation. I'm very thankful for your time, and I hope that this was very beneficial to all of you.